There's one type of movie that I absolutely love, it's dumb action movies. You know, the sort that are just so dumb, but so fun that you can just ignore all of the problems with them and just go along on their crazy, silly, stupid ride. Those sort of films, Armageddon is one that I've covered recently, that I'm still trying to upload because Disney are dicks, that I absolutely adore. Con Air is my favourite film of all time, even like Geostorm. Dumb action movies are the best. This one stars The Rock. It's inspired clearly by Die Hard and The Tower and Inferno, and has The Rock with one leg. I don't even think he needs one. I think he could jump a building with no legs. Jumping from a crane to a building that's also the tallest building in the world. This film looked amazing. What could possibly go wrong? Everything.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Starring, amongst others, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Neve Campbell, Chin Han and Pablo Schreiber. Written and directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber. This is my review for Skyscraper. Skyscraper is the story of Will Sawyer, a man who loses his leg in a hostage situation gone terribly, terribly wrong, and then he gets a job as sort of the head of security, somebody who knows this giant tall building inside out of a giant tall building, the tallest building in the world that's located in Hong Kong. Shortly after he arrives there, people launch an attack on this hotel and try to burn it down, and he needs to get back inside where his trapped family are. Let me start with what works, I think, about Skyscraper, and it's going to be brief. It's going to be very brief. Dwayne Johnson is, as ever, a likeable lead. He's the sort of person that, just because he's doing a film, I want to go and see it. Whether that will continue, we'll see. But at the moment, he's still at that stage where, yeah, it's The Rock, I want to go and see it. And he's fine here. This isn't one of his best roles by a long shot. But he does what he needs to do. He does the best that he can with the script that he's been given. Standout for me, though, would be Neve Campbell. It's so good to see her back in a AAA blockbuster movie again. I kind of wish it wasn't this one, but it's good to see that she's still got it. She's still got the acting chops. She can still deliver a great performance, and she does here. When Dwayne Johnson's doing his crazy, silly things that you would never in a million years think somebody would be able to do because they couldn't, her reactions to it make it seem a little bit more believable. Her shock, her awe, her worry at what she's seeing is so genuine, and plus it helps that the character's a really kick-ass character as well. She can hold her own, she can stand her ground in a fight, and there's a little bit of damsel of distress with her, there's a little bit of getting inside to save her and the children, but she's not completely set, that type of character. She can do her own thing. As I say, she can hold her own, and that was nice to see. And yeah, I hope Neve Campbell gets more work off the back of this. I hope we see her make a proper return to big budget movies again. Just hopefully ones that are a little bit better than Skyscraper. There's also a really good sequence in it, and that's singular. Really good sequence. The sequence where he's climbing the crane, the bit you've seen in the poster and in the trailer where he does that jump. Up until the jump, when he's sort of climbing up this crane for what seems like an eternity, and in a good way, because this is a good sequence. The height of it and just the danger of it, that's one of the only times that feels real. That's one of the only times where I was like, ooh, okay, this film's getting good again. It didn't go much beyond that. That was pretty much the only bit. There might have been the odd bit here and there that I was genuinely into. But, yeah, that bit on its own, that worked. And to be fair, the bit at the start as well. The opening few minutes of the hostage situation that shows how Will Sawyer lost his leg is a really well done sequence. It set a tone for this movie that the rest of Skyscraper didn't follow. It feels almost separated from what comes after it. But again, that's a sequence for me that worked. That's a sequence that had sort of genuine sort of emotion behind it, genuinely strong performances. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can say that's a positive here, and I don't think I can. For me, the main issue with Skyscraper is that it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. And if it does, it doesn't let the audience know what it wants to be. It doesn't know what it's trying to be, or who it's trying to appeal to. This is a 12A over here, and for those outside the UK who may not know, 12A means that pretty much anybody of any age can go and see this film, but if you're under the age of 12, you need to have an adult with you. So 6-year-olds could go and watch Skyscraper. And this is an action movie that has been compared a lot to Die Hard and to The Tower and Inferno. And normally I would say it's unfair to put that kind of comparison on a movie. Let it be its own thing. But then the marketing team behind this went and released posters that riffed on Die Hard. It was an old classic style Die Hard poster, just changed to be like Skyscraper. They did the same for The Tower and Inferno as well. So they've They themselves have leaned in to the fact that it's an inspiration of these films, and that is a real detriment to this. I mean, I'm not saying that I think it would be any better if they hadn't done that. It still would be a bad film, but to open up and invite those comparisons really does Skyscraper no favours whatsoever. Because in trying to appeal to a younger audience, or not necessarily to appeal, but to be a movie that a younger audience can see, it can't be as violent as the likes of Die Hard. And Die Hard is at times quite a brutal film. There's a lot of really visceral action in that, and visceral violence. And Skyscraper doesn't go anywhere near that. There's a scene where an entire room full of people are gunned down, and we don't see any blood whatsoever. We don't actually see them get shot, I think. I think it's all kind of... You see them sitting there, you see them firing the guns, and it cuts back and they're already dead. So it doesn't have the... just... Fun violence is always a weird thing to say, but it's a film. Violence can be fun. Check out John Wick. But it doesn't have that going for it. It doesn't have that, the violence in this film is amazing. It lacks it so much. Nothing feels real in this. The violence doesn't feel real, and as a result, the threat itself doesn't feel real. The other way it could have gone is it could have tried to be funny, and not necessarily an outright comedy, but just a fun ride. Full of action quips. You know, the kind of quips where the lead character will just say something to himself that's clearly for the audience, but it's fun. It gives a sense of fun, and so many films do this well. So many dumb action movies just embrace the silly side of things, which makes it enjoyable. That's, for me, is how you can do an action movie that anybody can see if you make it genuine fun. If the cast and the crew, if anybody involved in the film knows how ridiculous this is, and they're playing up to how silly the whole situation is. But Skyscraper doesn't do that either. It takes itself so seriously. And that's a real problem in a film that's so stupid. I posted on Twitter that this was a ton of dumb and not a lot of fun. And I stand by that 100%. I think there was only... I'm sure there must have been more, but there was only one little quip that stuck out in my mind throughout the entire thing. And even that was a pretty shit one. It was something to do with... If you can't fix a problem with duct tape, you haven't got enough duct tape, or something like that. That was their version of how to do these fun action movie quips. And it was so out of place here, because the rest of the movie doesn't do that. The rest of the film just, as I say, takes itself so damn seriously. And because that's the sort of weird tone that it's gone for, the whole film suffers. Because Will Sawyer, Dwayne Johnson's character, goes through some stuff here that no human being would ever be able to survive. Not just, if you think that jump from the crane to the building was over the top, you haven't seen anything. That's small scale compared to what happens here. And as I say, if it was fun, if there was a bit of a wink at the audience, I think I just tried to wink but did a weird blink thing then. If there was winks at the audience to show that, yeah, we know this is silly, but we're gonna ham it up, we're gonna play to that, then having him dangling from a building and swinging across the windows of it, God knows how many feet up in the air, would work, because our belief has been suspended. You can't suspend your disbelief if the movie wants you to think that this genuinely could happen, as if Dwayne Johnson's character genuinely could survive loads of the crap that he's going through. Perhaps the biggest sin that Skyscraper commits is that it's so boring. And it's weird to say, because it does go from action beat to action beat, like there's one action sequence after another, just continuously, but there's nothing inventive here, there's nothing new. I think every single action scene that we've seen has been done better elsewhere. It's so lacking in any kind of originality whatsoever that it's almost a little bit insulting to ask people to pay to come and see this. As I say, the only part of the movie that genuinely had me like, oh, okay, this could be good, was the climbing the crane scene. It was when he was on that crane. And that's the bit that we saw a lot of in the trailer. The rest of it is so bland and so generic and just full of really crap characters as well. The villains here are awful. And there's one villain who's a surprise, he's a villain that from the very second, before this guy had even said a word, a friend and I looked at each other and went, he's a bad guy. And he was. Because there's no surprises here. It's a generic selection of villains. The main villain, I think it's Pablo Schreiber's character, he feels like he should be a henchman for somebody much bigger, but he's not. He's the guy in charge. He's so B-movie in his performance, I don't even think it's the performance's fault. I think it's just the characterization. I think it's just how it's been written. That it's just a lot of nothing. It's kind of embarrassing as well that it tries so hard to be clever. There's a whole Hall of Mirrors sequence that you see early on, and it does play a factor later on, that just seems so much like a gimmick. I'm still not 100% sure why they had a hall of mirrors in this building to begin with, but they've got it there. It is there to use, and they use it in an action sequence because, of course, they would. They've got it. It's the Chekhov's gun in this movie. Of course, it's going to come into play. But that even plays out exactly the way that you'd think it would play out. And again, no surprises, no originality, nothing to genuinely make me think that any effort has gone into anything in this movie other than The Rock staying hench and doing hench things. And I've got to say, as a fan of The Rock, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about him. Not personally, I'm sure he's fine, but when it comes to his movie choices, because he's such a name at the moment that, as I said earlier on, a lot of people will just go and see a film because The Rock's in it. But how far can that patience be tested? Let's just have a quick look, actually, at the last few films that he's done. I should have had this ready in advance, but I didn't. Just to see what the quality of his movies have been like lately, because I can remember the last one. So not including Fast 8, where are we? So San Andreas is a movie that I really liked. I was hoping this would be the same thing. For some reason I've watched San Andreas about 5 or 6 times and I continue to like it. I think because it doesn't take itself seriously. Central Intelligence was a comedy that just didn't work for me at all. I didn't like it. Moana, yeah. Baywatch was absolutely terrible. Jumanji was really good. Rampage was better than this, but it was still pretty crappy. I've got a review of Rampage up on here. I didn't like that. And now Skyscraper. The Rock needs to be a bit more careful about the projects that he chooses. He can't just rely on the fact that he's Dwayne Johnson to bring people to seats, because eventually people are going to start going, ugh, do I really want to see this? The last couple were a bit shit. And I'm kind of already there. Like, I'm looking forward to the next Jumanji, and Hobbs and Shaw will probably be great because that's a part of the Fast and Furious franchise. But his standalone movies now, I'm getting less and less excited to see. And it's because he takes on these projects that are just so creatively lazy. Rampage had massive villain problems. The villains in it were absolutely awful. But it's nothing compared to Skyscraper, where it just feels like a cash ploy. It feels like it's been made purely to make money. Purely because The Rock wanted to do some cool scenes in a really tall building, rather than because there was actually a creative and interesting reason to make the film. So yeah, I think he has to be careful, otherwise people's faith in him is going to start to be tested. And based on what he's released in 2018 so far, it'd be entirely fair if it was. So I've already spoken for longer than I need to speak to you about Skyscraper. It's a bad film. When I saw the trailers for this, I wasn't expecting to jot it down on my list of worst movies of 2018. But so far it's on there. Whether it stays there or not, just depends on what other crap comes out this year. But at the moment it's there because it's such a dull, unoriginal, lifeless film. While the premise of it could have been something so much fun, but so much potential of it has been completely missed. I'm going to give Skyscraper a 4 out of 10. Have you seen Skyscraper? If so, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Hit like, hit subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, @JoeJulians. Let me know your favourite Rock movies as well. Did you like San Andreas? Because I've got a feeling that's a film where I'm in the minority of for actually enjoying it. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. More reviews coming as well. The Armageddon Movies at 20 review will finally be uploaded today. I think Disney have been dicks and copyright blocking everything, so it's taken multiple edits to get this one up. I'll also have reviews for Incredibles 2. Finally got to see it. And The Secret of Marrowbone as well in the next day or two. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.